Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Keyforge with Kevbot, the series designed to make you a better Keyforge player. Today we're going to talk about how to evaluate new decks. I know with the Keyforge release being this weekend, a lot of people are going to be looking at their decks for the first time, especially if you haven't played a lot, you're not going to know what to think about it. I'm just going to give you some simple rules to see how good your deck might be and what you might want to do strategy-wise with your first deck. But real quick, guys, if you are new here, please consider subscribing. I put out strategy videos like this just about once a week. Please consider leaving a like and comment if you do enjoy the video. My goal here is to teach you guys the 5 steps that I use personally to identify a specific game plan and gauge the overall power level of a new deck that you're seeing for the first time. But obviously, you're going to have to be playing with this deck to really get a true feel for it. We are going to be featuring my first paper deck, though. I'm really excited to show this off. It's called The Woman Who Neglects Betrayal. We'll see if it's really good or really bad, and I'll give you guys some feedback on how I analyzed my deck. And this should really be helpful for you guys if you want to be doing better at limited events, playing the adaptive game type where you swap decks with your opponent, or even just trading decks in the first couple of weekends. You don't want to trade for a bad deck or anything like that. So with that, we'll get right into step number 1, which is you want to be identifying and analyzing your houses. So for mine, I got Logos, Sanctum, and Untamed, which are some of my more favorite classes. I did put out a way too early house rankings video. Those rankings have held up pretty well. Recently, though, I got some stats from about a week old on the Crucible Online on the Keyforge Discord. You can see those in the lower right-hand corner. They line up pretty well with my assumptions that I made a month and a half ago. Obviously, you don't want to have too many bad classes. You can see if you're playing maybe Mars, Sanctum, and Bromnar, those are all at 48% win rate. So collectively, that's going to be, on average, a worse deck than if you were playing Shadows, Dis, and Logos, for example. So it's not a set-in-stone rule, but it'll give you a little bit of a feel for what the deck might be. Next, we want to be identifying the powerful cards in our library. So the big 3 ones you want to be looking out for are Library Access in Logos, Arise, and Dis, Bait and Switch in Shadows. Those are pretty well known by this point. And these cards are going to be the cards that will shape your game plan, and you're going to want to be leveraging the strength that those cards have. You want to build your game plan around your best cards. In my power rankings video, again, I'll link that for you guys, but I did highlight about 5 or 6 cards in each class that are representative of good cards you want to be looking for, so you can reference that there. But over in my current deck list, we've got cards like Blinding Light to stun a bunch of creatures. Spirit's Way and Save the Pack are really good board wipes. Hunting Witch, really happy to see that in Untamed. You want that in every single Untamed card pool. And then the rare Doom of the Martyr is a pretty nice rare for us to pick up. So after you sort of identified your powerful cards, the next thing you want to be doing is sorting your actions and permanents. So you can see I've done this on my desk at home. We've got the action cards on the left and the permanents, which would be the creatures, the upgrades, and the artifacts. So this is just an easy way to organize. You can do left, right, top to down, whatever is easier. And you want to look for your duplicate cards as well. So this just is an easy way to look at everything. Once you do this, you do want to count up your creatures. In my experience, you want to be somewhere between 14 and 18 creatures, and it's much better to have too many creatures than not enough. The reason that is because creatures are your biggest source of resources. Both the static effects and the ability to reap with those creatures is extremely powerful, and usually the person who's ahead on board is very favored to win games. So my deck only has 11, which is really quite poor. Like I said, you really want to have at least 14 in my experience, and that's a really important fact that not a lot of people are talking about. You want to go ahead and count up your threats as well. I have about 6 in mind. The best one obviously is Hunting Witch, but I also have Sequus and Raiding Knight, which are pretty good. Doc Bookton and Dream Eater are fine, but really not as many as I would like to have. And you can see I just have far too many action cards, and we'll discuss those later. So once you've done that and identified all your creatures and made sure you have enough and everything like that, you want to start to look at your disruption. So that's going to be a lot of the times your action cards, but it could be board wipes, stuns, discard effects, or especially removal. So you can see these are the cards that I have in mind. Blinding Light I've talked about a lot. It's one of my favorite cards in House Sanctum. The action that lets you stun a bunch of creatures and gets you an amber. You can also see I have 3 board wipes, which is pretty good, especially because I don't have a lot of creatures, so that's a small synergy. Even though I don't have a lot of creatures, my board wipes should be better because of that. And I also have a good amount of board stall to prevent my opponent from getting too much advantage, hopefully. I've got 2 Nocturnal Maneuvers and Lost in the Woods, which can bounce my opponent's creatures and exhaust them so they can't get too many resources. So hopefully I can last until I can drop a Spirit's Way and then get back on ahead of the board with some more Sanguine creatures to follow that up. Obviously, once you've identified the disruption, you'll start to want to build your game plan and think about your specific synergies, which I've already talked about a little bit. For my deck, some of the big keys I've found was I need to stall the board with stuff like Fogify, Nocturnal Maneuver, and then follow up with a board wipe like Spirit's Way, and hopefully get back on board like that. My best creature card is Hunting Witch, and I do have some ways to protect it with Fogify and Nocturnal Maneuver. Spirit's Way actually doesn't hit Hunting Witch as well, which is a really great feature for me. But I want to be using my 2 copies of Regrowth as well, always to get back my Hunting Witch, to keep that threat on the board as long as possible. So now we've sort of gotten our game plan and synergies all lined up. I want to talk about my rating scale that I'm going to use personally for my decks. It's going to be a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 would be a professional grade deck that you'd be happy to take to a regional or national level tournament. That's going to be worth some money. 4 would be a top tier at your local level. You're going to be able to have favored matchups against a lot of the meta decks, and should be able to get you some tournament wins and some prizes and stuff like that at the local level. Number 3 would just be an average deck. It's gonna nothing too fancy, but is definitely serviceable and worth the money paid for it. 2 would be below average. So maybe you don't have enough creatures, or maybe your actions just aren't good enough, or maybe you just don't have any synergies, which is a really important part of Keyforge. And then 1 would just be an unplayable or broken deck. Should not have many of these, but say if you only have 6 creatures, or like it's just the worst card pool in the world. I can't imagine me giving out many 1s to decks. So overall, on my side of the things, I'm just too light on threats to be able to leverage creature-based advantages for a board state. I mean, you can see the only threat I really have, which I'm happy with, is Hunting Witch, which is really quite poor. And then a lot of my cards are just really, really narrow and too many do-nothings. Stuff like Hollowed Blaster and Reverse Time, literally 90% of the time do nothing. Same with Fogify, and Lost in the Woods, Nocturnal Maneuver, Regrowth can be fine, but they're very situational cards, and I don't have a really good Amber Engine or anything in this deck. So what I'm going to give it is a 2 out of 5. Not the best deck. Still won a couple games with it my first day playing, and I'll probably keep on playing with it just to get a good feel, make sure I'm not missing out on anything, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting some new decks for myself. But that does it for me, guys. I really appreciate you guys sticking it through the videos. If you did learn something, please leave me a like, a comment. Let me know what you've been doing for your own analysis of your decks. If I missed out on something, I'm always happy to learn. Everybody's going to be learning together with this game just coming out this weekend. If you do want to get more of these strategy guides, please subscribe and put on that notification. I'm going to be putting out a lot more content, and hopefully live gameplay content once I get more decks in my video situation all worked out. But that does it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. I hope you learned something. And as always, good luck out there battling in the Crucible.